آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال آتوني أفرغ عليه كترا. Suratul-Kahfi, Surah 18, Ayat 96. Before you point fingers at me, let me be very clear. I tried to break it up according to the grammatical rules. Hence, the pronunciation was not according to the tajweed rules. I broke it up deliberately so that it's easier for us to follow through when we translate this verse. Atuni, give me. Zubara, okay, Atuni basically means to come. But in this context, I think the best word, the most suitable word is a word which is similar to that. Give me. Zubara. You've heard the term Zabur and you also heard the term Zubur in the Quran. This word is related to those two words. Zubara. In this context, so what is the Zabur, the Psalms of David, al-Islam, the Zabur given to Dawud al-Islam? What is it? They were pieces of fragments where there were inscriptions or writing. So in that context, that word pieces is what you need to focus. Zubara, the pieces. Al-Hadidi, and this is an idafa construct, so off will come in between. Al-Hadidi is iron. It's a metal, so you don't say the iron, you don't do that. So, and Zubara, the pieces, it's because Al-Hadid is proper. But instead of iron, we will translate as iron ore. Why? If you know basic chemistry, metallurgy, you will not argue with me about that aspect. Give me the pieces of iron ore. So chunks of iron ore, after it is mined, that's what it is in reference to. Hatta, until. So the next part will clarify why we have translated as iron ore instead of iron. Not much to argue about. If you translate iron, I don't mind. But it's actually iron ore which was extracted or mined that is being referenced over here. Hatta, until, idha, when, sawa. Now, sawa is a verb. This verb has appeared before in this surah itself. So you go and check that detailed explanation. I'll not repeat that. But suffice it to say that we'll actually use just two words to indicate the meaning in the sentence. We'll just give the reference of those two words in the English language and we'll rapidly proceed with the translation. So it's work, obviously. Sawa, it's in the verb form 3 pattern. But anyway, so the root word, the basic meaning is something like this. The basic meaning is it's a work, but there is perfection involved. It's a work of art, right? So there's science and there is art. So the science, obviously, but this word specifically refers to the art. So even if this process itself is a scientific process, but it was created with a lot of art. So close to perfection, not even close to perfection. Sawa itself means perfection. So excuse me for that slip of tongue. It's not close to perfection, it's perfection. Baina, okay, the second meaning, so it's a work of art, it's perfect, and the second meaning is to level, So in that context, we'll obviously look at the translation, but before that, let me clarify what's coming up so that together we can use it to understand the translation better. Baina, between. I read it al-Sadafaini, but when you pronounce it, it should be as-Sadafaini. You don't say al. So it's in the dual again, and it's the third term that's coming up. We have come across Saddan, we have come across Radman. Saddan, there was another variant, Saddaini, and this is Sadafaini. The root word is Sod Dal Fa, Sadafa. Sadafaini, Sadafa, Sadaf. What does it mean? It means an open shell. So this structure. So between the two mountain ranges, but it says between the two open shells. What is it talking about? Let's see. So this part we'll translate one go. Until first I'll read the translation to you, and then I'll again go back and explain whatever needs further explanation. Until when he, along with the assistance of labor of the local people, perfectly arranged it in the form of a pile to level and fill up the gap of the pass between the two parts of the mountain range, structurally having the appearance of an open seashell shaped feature. It's a bit of a tongue twister. I just remembered she sells seashells on the seashore. Anyway, so open seashell shaped feature. Anyway, hey, the Arabic words was just handful. How many? So there was this sawa, baina, as-sadafaini. Just 3 words, and almost 3 lines were required to explain that. What's happening over here? Okay, sawa, since its action, its work, Zulkarnain did the work, but what did he request for in the previous verse? Labor. So he did it. He sort of was the prime architect, so to say. He was the prime, he drove the work. He ensured, he managed the work. So he also participated in the work. That's my understanding, as the Prophet ﷺ participated in the construction of Masjid al-Quba, I guess it was. Along with the companions, he put in his part of the labor as well. So Zulkarnain participated in the work, and he represents the people. So it says he did it, but he, along with the assistance of labor of the local people, and what did they do collectively? For which he was responsible, for which he was leading the work, they perfectly arranged it. It will not say they, it will say he, because he is representing the people in this case. He arranged it perfectly. So that sawa meaning, primary meaning, perfect work of art, perfectly arranged it. What? The pieces of iron ore in the form of a pile to level and fill up the gap of the pass between the two parts of the mountain ridge, to fill up, to level. So that is another meaning of sawa. And so you are laying it, right, to level and fill up the gap between the gap of the pass between the two parts of the mountain range. And this mountain range was structurally having the appearance of an open seashell shaped feature. It had an open seashell shaped feature. So it looked like this. What's it talking about? So it's giving us some cues for us to explore. Where can we find such a mountain range, where the pass and on the either side of the pass, you see the mountain range structure is somewhat like an open seashell. That seashell shaped feature is there. So it's giving us cues. Good, and we will explore those cues as well. But first, let us complete one iteration. So this is Sadafain. So Saddan was used, Radman was used, and Sadaf is now used. Interesting words and hints and cues to help us explore the historical context, the geographical context, all of these. And then after having laid it, it continues, and I'll give you sort of a detailed explanation a little bit later. Qala, he said, unfukhu, it's a command verb, imperative verb. It just means blow. It's in the plural, so it's instructing not just one person or two persons, but plural, 3 or more. So there were many people who participated, assisted Zulkarnain al-Islam with their labor. So to all of them, this instruction is the blow. Now blow with a bellows on it. So with the bellows on it is understood. So that iron ore, they have kindled a fire. So the metallurgical process to extract, why have they I mean ask, and because the nar word will appear as well, why have they kindled a fire? To extract the iron now from the iron ore. So that's why I translated iron ore instead of iron. He said, blow with a bellows on it. So bellow is what should I say? It's an instrument. So you press it, so the air blows out of it, and then it sort of helps in the that air helps in the fire. So That is it. Helps in, I mean, in the process, in expediting the process, basically. He said, blow with the bellows on it. Hatta, until, this part is again tricky. Either when, ja'alahu. So the two meanings, I'll explain it one by one. Until when he made it naran, like fire. He did not make the iron like fire. I mean, fire. He did not make the iron fire, but he made it like fire. So when you, even if you've seen these processes, that iron, whether in a blacksmith's sort of workshop, so the iron, what happens, if you hammer it, it becomes red, so it looks like fire. If you blow with the bellows, then it becomes like fire. So that simile is being mentioned away, when he made it like fire. Ja'alahu naran. He made it like fire. And this, there is a second meaning. Let's explain the second meaning as well. Because ja'alahu is he made it. But ja'ala can also mean it made it. Isn't it? Ja'ala, because he, she are there, but it is not there in the Arabic language. So if you have to reference it, we have to either reference it by he or she. So it made it. What does it mean? It made itself. It made itself means it turned itself. So when you are blowing with the bellows, after having the initial ignition, so it's flaring up, it, because of the process, what is happening is it turned itself into fire. So it became red hot. That's what it's suggesting. So both the meanings are applicable simultaneously. That's the beauty of it. He made it like fire, as well as it turned itself into fire, almost like a fire. He said, he said, Atuni. Now this part is very, very tricky. Again, just 1, 2, 3, 4 words, and we have to use 3, 4, what should I say, lines to explain this. Atuni, pass me. Now, what are they supposed to pass him? Not mentioned. It just says, afrig. Atuni, afrig. Which means I pour. Okay, pass me, I pour. What is happening? And what is this word afrig doing? It should be afrigu in the present tense, I pour, which the translators or the scholars have translated as, it's an erroneous translation. It cannot be I pour. It's not in the normal form. Afraga yufrigu, afrigu, afrig. Afrig or ufrig. Anyway, so it's not in the present future form. It's in the imperative or command form. Now, because of that, what is happening is, I think it's ufrig. Afraga yufrigu, ufrigu. So ufrig. Anyway, so that we have to see. So that's not the main part of the discussion. The main part lies in this complexity of the structure, not in the vocab itself. So, pass me, and then it says, I pour. Where is the connection? Again, this is not in the normal form, but it's in this form, lightest form, because it's jawabu shart. So, if then statement, this is the then part. So, we have to infer all that is being actually implied, implicitly stated, without being explicitly stated from this word. This word itself is a hint to that. So what we need to do is we have to construct that. Pass me the crucibles containing molten copper. How do I know it's molten copper? Because kitran is used at the end. We'll come to that as well. And if you could do so, then subsequently I can pour. You got the meaning? And if you could do so, then subsequently I can pour. Alayhi, okay, alayhi, on it, kitran, copper. But why have we translated it the way I have? And if you could do so, then subsequently and pour it over the wall, Pour over the wall it. Kitran, I have translated it because I already mentioned, I have referenced molten copper before, because that was missing. Atuni, and then, which means pass me, I pour over it copper. You see the gap? And the not just the gap, not just I'm trying to be logical, I'm inferring from the construct, the Arabic construct itself. So pass me the crucibles containing molten copper. So when I pour, I'm obviously pouring the molten copper. I'm pouring the molten copper. And so there is a fire, right? So, I mean, it's not a single process that is being described. Multiple processes are happening. And it's not necessarily the case that they have arranged everything, the iron ore, into one big filled up the gap completely, and then they are blowing with their bellows on it. No, there could be a workshop at the side where they're doing that, and once it is being done, then they are transferring that. So a whole lot of process, the chemical and the metallurgical processes happening over here. We need to appreciate all of those, because this is not a description in metallurgy, not in chemistry. The Quran is not a book of chemistry or metallurgy. So it is giving bits and pieces of the information as much as it is required, and it's giving you sufficient cues to infer the rest. And it's possible to infer from the construct itself. Okay, so since I've already referenced molten copper, I can pour it, I can say, I did not repeat that word, because initially the word kitran was missing. Atuni kitran, you can, it's not Atuni kitran actually, ufrig, pour kitran, that way also you can infer. But I have already referenced that as part of Atuni. Pass me, I pour. Pass me what? The crucibles containing molten copper. Since that word already has appeared, I can use the word it. Now, kitran, it. I can pour it. Alayhi, over the wall. How do I know it's a wall? Because they're constructing the wall. So you see, it's complex, but there are hints and cues. We have to use those cues to reconstruct what's the scene at the construction site, so to say, in today's terminology. When you read the English, it becomes very simple. Give me the piece of iron ore, until when he, along with the assistance of labor of the local people, perfectly arranged it in the form of pile. So that process is multiple processes being compressed into a single sentence. So initially it could very well be at a separate site nearby the site of the pass, where they are doing these processes in the form of pile, or maybe they are extracting the ore and then they are leveling it up. So all of these are applicable. To level and fill up the gap, because level and perfect, all of these are meaning of Sawa. Fill up the gap of the pass between the two parts of the two parts of the mountain range. Why? Because he's constructing the wall now, structurally having an appearance of an open seashell shaped feature. He said, blow with the bellows on it, until when he made it or it turned itself into fire. He said, pass me the crucibles containing molten copper, and if you could do so, then subsequently I can pour it over the wall. Simple. Not very difficult. There is a bit of a complexity which I've already explained. Now, there are cues. We need to search for this site, isn't it? That is why it's giving you who gives the shape of a mountain range, especially at that pass, at the point where it sort of meets, right? And another meaning of this thing, sadaf, is it's connected. So it's connected at the bottom. This open, see shell, but it's connected also at the bottom. That's how the pass is there. It's a valley. It's almost like a valley, but there's a pass so that they can encroach from the other side, infiltrate from the other side to this side, the Gog and Magog people, and perpetrate their destruction. So yeah, so now if we search for this, sure, we find this mountain pass, and this is today known as Darial Gorge. This Darial Gorge, and when you look at the pictures of Darial Gorge, it's indeed like an open sea shell shaped. It has open sea shell shaped feature structurally. So the structure is now being referred by the word sadaf, the use of the word sadaf in the sentence. So you see the beauty and so much information. And where is this? Where is this pass? This Darial Gorge. This pass happens to be in Georgia. Again, you see the connection, the language, the linguistics, and the historical and the geographical. All of the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are coming together. It's beautiful. And if Allah does not bless you, how can you possibly penetrate the reality? You will be fooled by the appearance. You will never be able to infer things. And you will always claim that this is from the Shoaib. We don't know. What is there for the guide? So much cues are being given, and then you are supposed to explore, as is mentioned in the verse in the in Surah Baqarah in the Quran, that وَعَلَّمَ الْآدَمَ وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ what was it? وَعَلَّمَ الْآدَمَ أَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. I hope I have not quoted it incorrectly, but spare me if I am not able to recollect that. So we taught the potential knowledge was given to Adam al-Islam. It's through the exploration of that knowledge, that human being generation by generation have reached this stage. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ أَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, or al-asma kullaha, something like that. I don't want to go into that track, because if I misquote, then it becomes a problem. So I'm not saying that I'm not sure actually, but it's a verse in Surah Baqarah in the early parts, verse number 31 onwards, 31 to 40, somewhere over there it's mentioned. I hope I'm not making a mistake over there as well. Anyway, so you can read through that. It's around about that section in Surah Baqarah. So this potential exploration of knowledge, even the word ikra, for example, read, explore, learn. This is the very innate nature of the human beings. Even many of the prisoners of war, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you teach teach the companions reading and writing, then we'll release you. That's the importance associated with education, with learning, with exploration. And there are other stories connected with the wall during the Caliphate era as well, let alone current generations, as far back as the Caliphate era. The Rashidun Caliphate era, that too. The first 30 years. In fact, the first sort of around 10-12 years as well. So anyway, so the Darial Gorge, that being in Georgia, that shape being an open sea shell structure, all of these are coming together. It being in Georgia, the unconnected nature of the Georgian language with the rest of the languages in and around, and indeed with it's an unconnected language, does not belong to any family group with the other languages in the region, in its vicinity. So that is it then. It's a beautiful verse. There are things which are left open. For that, you need to go into a state of deep thinking and explore, and then things will become clear to you. It's not just from logic, it's from the construct as well. I have repeated that quite a few times now. The word over there being in the sort of lightest majzoom status. Right? So I think whatever we wanted to explain, I've already explained now. So the scene, you need to imagine multiple processes are happening, and why copper, why iron. Okay, so that is another discussion. But there's some sort of hint again in the next verse or the next verses. As and when we'll read that, we'll explain this part as well. We're not shying away from that, but we'll get an opportunity to explain that. But let the explanation come, albeit briefly. After that, post that, we will have a little bit more explanation. Okay, so we'll read it as always once again. Atuni zubar al-hadidi hatta idha sawa bayna sadafaini qala unfuqu hatta idha ja'alahu naran qala atuni ufrig alayhi kitran. Give me the pieces of iron ore, until when he, along with the assistance of labor of the local people, perfectly arranged it in the form of a pile to level and fill up the gap of the pass between the two parts of the mountain range, structurally having the shape of an open seashell shaped feature. He said, blow with your bellows on it, until when he made it like, or it turned itself into fire, he said, pass me the crucibles containing molten copper. And if you could do so, then subsequently I can pour it over the wall. Just one more thing, actually. Why does it say al-Hadidi? I just figured out that there is a secondary reason as well. So indeed, the leveling up or filling the gap of the pass between the two parts of the mountain range was with iron, not iron ore. So after the process, after the purification process of the iron ore, so to say, to extract the iron out of it, then what was used was iron. So again, omitting the steps and the processes, the direct word is used. But initially, the piece of iron ore was what he said, give me. And then the process happened, and the iron that was extracted, that was leveled and filled up, used to fill up the gap of the pass. I think that's it then for this session. We'll continue with verse number 97 in the next session, inshallah.